name's Sue Palmer, and the book I'm going to talk about is called Toxic Childhood. It was originally published in 2006 and then a second edition in 2015. And it's asked about key terms in it. And actually, it's a hodgepodge. I'll explain how it came about. I'm not a sociologist. I'm a primary teacher originally, but by the end of the 1990s, I was traveling around the UK as a freelance educational writer. So I was writing for the press, and I was writing, I was speaking in schools about the books I'd written, educational books. And what I found was that all the teachers in the schools wanted to talk about something else. They wanted to talk about the kids. It was everywhere. I was meeting hundreds and hundreds of teachers, and everywhere they were all saying, you know, they're not focusing their attention as well as they used to. It's just funny, and or there's more little low-level behavioural issues, or they're not getting along as well in the playground. Or one thing they said was that language seems to be going down with the little ones. It's not as good. And well, to start with, you think, oh, it's just a load of grumpy old women, but after a bit, it was young teachers, it was everybody. It just seemed to be, and I started thinking, is there something in the water? What's going on? So I talked it over with lots of teachers, and they came up with lots of reasons why they thought this might be happening. And I thought, okay, I'm going to find out, which was very foolhardy. But fortunately, writing for the press, I was able to get hold of experts very easily. So, I'd identify who seemed to be the top person in, say, diet, and contact them. And she gave me an interview for TES, and then she'd also tell me other people that it would be worth contacting and good books to read, academic papers. And basically, I gave myself several months on each of 10 topics, right? So the first 3 were all to do with biological development, the effects of your environment, and they were biology. So it was diet, play, which is really important for kids' development, and sleep. And then I did a chapter on communication skills, but actually it grew into social and emotional development because it was mostly about very early years relationships. And chapter 5 was about family structures, chapter 6 was about childcare, chapter 7 was about school, all the things that could influence children's development and behaviour. And then there were 2 chapters about what I suppose you'd call modern life, because basically by the end of the 90s, the world was really changing. The computer had been invented in the middle of the 20th century, and it put us on this sort of exponential course of change that was getting faster and faster and faster. And by the middle 90s, you really noticed things were changing. So I did a chapter on growing up in a virtual world, in a screen-based world. And then the second one of the chapter was how that screen-based world was funded, because the people who pay for it are huge global multinational corporations that are using very sophisticated psychological techniques to influence what we want and how we behave, and even aiming them at very, very, very small children. And that was the chapter that bothered me the most. I got really upset by that. The final chapter was just a sort of summing up of attitudes in general, attitudes that had changed so much since I was a kid, communities, the way they interacted, the way people thought about parents and parenting, and the way people reacted to children. So 10 chapters, a sort of toxic cocktail, because in every single one of them there were things that could be affecting children's development, and that's why it got the name Toxic Childhood. But it also has a subtitle, How the Modern World is Damaging Our Children and What We Can Do About It, because we can do something to ameliorate this. There are ways, some countries have taken various moves forward that are meaning that children have better well-being. And I'm afraid that the United States and the UK are particularly bad about this. If our policymakers had the will, childhood need not be toxic. So that's what it's about.